I got to tell you, I was surprised to see how angry Cubs fans were last night in watching the game. And I know that they had a couple of questions. I had a couple of questions that I hope that you're okay with us kind of going through a little bit on some of the decision making. With the Patrick Wisdom bunt, what was that on him? Was that something that came from you? And what were the options in that situation as you saw them?
Yeah, I mean, that was on me. I made that decision as the first and second. He got hit in the wrist the time before. There was a lot of question marks within that. He was taking some swings in the cage the inning before, felt like he was good enough to play. But we all know, like, actual game speed, contact, swings are a little bit different. So just being down there, got contact behind him and Hosmer and plenty of matchup stuff behind Wiz. Want to get those guys in the scoring position, second and third. Got to a 3-1 count, still an advantage count for Wiz, and just happened to not execute the bunt. We'll kind of never know how things play out until we get to that. Maybe he hits a 3-run homer if we let him swing away, or maybe he strikes out and we don't get anything. But yeah, man, I think it's like one of those. I'm got a lot of question marks about how he feels, trusting the feedback I'm getting from my trainers, and also trusting the feedback he's telling me of how he can perform.
Was there ever a point where you were thinking, you know what, maybe I need to go in a different direction and pinch hit for him?
Sure. But when it became, I had that batter ready. But when it was first and second, nobody out, the obvious play for me with the question marks and still wanting to have matchup behind him when they brought in San Martin, the easy play for me was to ask him to sacrifice. I knew he could do that. He is a good bunter. I know he didn't get it down, but he's a very fundamentally sound player, and they just didn't execute. But absolutely, I had a pinch hitter ready.
And what was your rationale for sticking with Smyly as long as you did?
He had cleaned it up. I thought he had got soft contact early on, gave up some runs. He wasn't hit hard at all. We've kind of gotten deep and dunked as the losses we've had early on. But he had owned Fairchild throughout the game, hit him. That was a hard one. The leadoff knock by Stevenson was a bloop single as well. He had looked really good in the second, third, and fourth. And so I really liked the matchup with Fairchild, which he hit, and he had one out, and Bosler was in there as a replacing an injured player, and he had punched him out with the breaking ball before and had Keegan ready for Friedel, who hits lefties better than righties. So it just didn't work out, I know that's part of this game, but definitely had thought through every scenario and had trusted Smyly there. And we got a short outing from the start of the time before. The bullpen's a little bit short from the length of some of the guys I had to use the day before. So a lot of bullpen matchup stuff kind of played into that as well. Didn't know I was going to get that much length out of Keegan. Keegan looked phenomenal yesterday, and he really picked us up and saved the bullpen.
When you have an injured player and you go out there with the trainer, what don't you want to hear from a player?
I don't not want to hear anything. I'm listening to, he's saying, just give me a minute, just give me a minute. His whole body's shaking. I mean, it got him square on the wrist. Pretty good goose egg as he came in the next inning. It's taped up, but you can see the swelling even poking through that tight tape. So just try to listen to the player. It's like going to the mound and taking a pitcher out or questioning the pitcher. They're always going to tell you they're fine. They're always going to do that. I was a player. I know that mentality. That's why they're on this level and being able to be at the major leagues. But, you got to kind of weigh that, what you see, the conviction in their voice, and also the advice of the trainers. I'm not a doctor. We try to talk all those things through. They feel really confident about him continuing to play. I think the question marks was swinging at game speed. And they actually got a hit later on in the game, which was pretty impressive. So, I know he got some x-rays afterwards. Everything seems to be fine. He's a little sore today, but getting treatment now. And as of now, we've got him in the lineup.
Stolen bases over last year at this time have almost doubled. The success rate is up about 20%. The numbers are really staggering right out of the gate. So my question is, when you talk about catching and all of the run prevention efforts, how are you able to balance proper pitch framing and stealing some strikes around the margins there with also being prepared for the new reality of the popularity and apparent ease of stealing bases?
Well, Dan, I don't think anything changes, to be honest with you. Like the guys we have are really good catchers. Tucker's got multiple gold gloves. Jan's World Series champion. Like these guys are really good defensively. If you look at their numbers over their career, they've done a really nice job of handling the running game. And so you're always expecting guys to run, whether the bases are bigger or not, and the new rules. Like that hasn't changed from a catching mentality. So nothing changes. You just the shorter distance and the fact that there's some gamesmanship within that. Pitchers have to be quicker to the plate, be able to execute with slide steps and taking their time and certain moments and playing that cat and mouse game, when to throw over, when teams might try to steal bases. If you look at the minor league numbers last year, stolen bases were up across the board like they are here. That's going to be a factor in our season this year, and we're going to do the best we can to try to negate that. But, some teams are going to run more probably than others, and you got to keep those guys off the bases and get them out as best you can.
I guess the reason I ask is I've been reading and watching some breakdowns of this about certain catchers who may have a knee down for framing purposes, who might want to be a little more athletically prepared than otherwise, and the idea of how long a look you might give an umpire where you got to be ready for the transfer and get that out of your hand, and you might not be able to sell a strike quite as long if you're concerned or trying to backpick or just trying to be athletically ready as a thrower rather than a framer.
Yeah, I think like without reading what knowing what you've read and haven't seen it myself, I think like what you got to know is like if a guy's running and you're going to backpick, you're always sacrificing looks for the umpire. That will always be the case. That is the hardest ball for them to call, ball or strike and get a good look at it, because you're going to be coming up the 3-2 pitch. You'll see guys miss that a lot because you get the runner in motion and you're trying to give a really good look to the umpire. But your job is to throw that guy out if that's a strike and he steals. So you've got to still, nothing changes within that. You can't take longer because you're going to be sacrificing that bag unless you have just a pitcher that's really long to the plate and you just concede that bag. So the knee down stuff is what is probably new and maybe some of the stuff you're talking about. And, those guys work on coming up out of that stance just like they would a 2-foot stance. And a lot of guys, it actually helps them because your first move for most catchers is the left knee tuck as you turn your body. That's how the body mechanics are going to work. So some of that is just speeding up the process. You just have to make sure you're waiting on the ball. One of the stuff Tucker works on a lot, which something that I had, was just making sure the ball travels, gets deep. You don't want to go out and get the ball and then things kind of mechanically don't sync up. So just little nuances like that. But, I don't think a whole lot changes other than just working on the technique. If you are a one knee down guy, you just train a little bit differently than, say, a guy like me in the past.
Rossi, you brought up that Keegan gave you some length last night. How could his role change throughout a season if he continues to come in and give you good innings?
I think the thing that stands out that, the public probably doesn't see as much is like the ability to bounce back and recover for bullpen guys are really important, and everybody's a little bit differently. So, the fact of how Keegan felt yesterday and giving us like 3 1/3, how efficient he was that second full inning when he went out there. He got 2 quick outs on 2 pitches and kept the pitch count down, coupled with the off day at the end of this series, gives him a chance to really recover, and we could, reboot the bullpen down there. He did that a lot for us last year, and how good he looked last night, how good he felt, kept us in a 1-run ball game from the 4th on. I mean, that's a huge, huge outing for us. We just weren't able to scrap across those last few runs, but we fought really hard. I think Keegan, ability to bounce back if we use him in a 1-inning stint to get out of heart of the order, and how he's able to recover he hasn't done much of that in pitching back-to-backs for us, and that's something that we're trying to really pay attention to this season.
I think it's hilarious for all of the hand-wringing over Dansby Swanson's spring training numbers. No matter how many times you tell yourself or you tell other people, it doesn't matter. Nothing translates, for better or for worse. Spring training doesn't count. He was batting like 092 or whatever, and here he's 10 of 17 to start the season. I don't know what it says about baseball, but I know baseball says it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, spring training stats, we get caught up in that, and especially on the veteran guys, I think there's some things you can count on is the guys that have been consistent, have track record. I think the thing that we try to rely on is those guys going to end up being themselves, and timing comes and the work to build up to get ready for the season. We all want to get hits every time we're out there. Excuse me. And having these guys, Dansby came in very much not trying to impress, just working his way into the season and worked on some things mechanically, worked on his timing. You start to see it sync up later in spring training. Last couple of games, hit a couple home runs and felt really good. I remember the last home run he hit. He's like, I'm ready, walked by me. So he's proven that. I'm happy for him getting off to a good start. I know not just offensively, but the plays he's made in the field have been really impressive. And it's been a joy to watch him play every single day. It's fun to come to work and be able to see him in person and really appreciate the Gold Glove he won last year, and how easy he plays that position is pretty impressive on a daily basis.
What's the latest on Seiya? It seems like the reports are pretty good.
He's coming along, getting some at-bats here today, and as he continues to bounce back, and hopefully that continues to build up and there's no setbacks, but he's moving along really well, and should hopefully start getting out of Arizona really soon, trying to get him as many warm climate at-bats as we possibly can before we send him to some of these places that the minor league teams have, some weather issues.
We were talking with Ian Happ earlier in the show, and he was mentioning about how, especially this time of year, the different ways the Wrigley outfield can play just depending on temperature and wind currents, and how he's been talking with Cody Bellinger about some of that. I saw that Miles Mastrobuoni early on, there was a key ball that dropped in front of him after he had come in for defensive replacement purposes. What sort of active coaching is there to do with outfielders who may be new to playing Wrigley regularly?
You get out there and shag. You get out there and take. I mean, the workout we had before the season started, the one fundamental that we pressed was pop-up priority, and we got the machine out there and we shoot it up there. The sun is going to be out. It's behind home plate for day games, beaming down in center field in the outfielder's eyes. And the wind can be a mess. So we shot a lot of balls in the air trying to get these guys ready. The cold weather and how the wind changes, you just got to get some experience out there. The way our roster is constructed right now with Say out, we've got basically three infielders that we're trying to maximize our strength out there and right with matchups. And, that one didn't work out for us. And but I think these guys, some of our best athletes that we have, we're trying to stick out there, Miles and Wiz at times. And obviously Mancini's played the outfield a little bit, but his strength is probably a little more first than the outfield. And so we're just trying to balance that the best we can until Seiya gets back.
You've seen a lot of transition since you took over as manager, from one regime to another, from the way the team was constructed to how it's constructed now. How would you assess where the Cubs are organizationally, and how do you feel about where things stand?
I feel great. We've definitely taken a step forward from building upon last year. The talent that's brought in, obviously, Tom and Jed and the front office going out spending dollars to bring in a guy like Dansby, and Trey Mancini, a recent World Series champ's got a track record. Cody Bellinger trying to have a bounce back year for us, playing center field, filling some holes, signing Nico to an extension, and being able to lock down that middle infield and where they're at for a really long time. We have former, World Series winners, and Eric Hosmer, and our catching core is defense first. And, I love it. We've got these guys that are, Hayden Wisniewski and the trade who's starting tonight, and really excited about Justin Steele. Again, looked great and piggybacking on his first full season and having a really nice year for himself and us. And it's coming. There's some talent that we got to see in spring training, and I love this group we have now, the way they go about their business, the way they pull together. We've got to have some guys step forward in the middle of our order that have had good and bad years at times, and they're working hard, and we've got a great coaching staff. I love the direction this group's headed, and I'm excited about the season we have ahead of us.
You have a rooting interest in the Masters?
I like to just watch. No, I don't get. I'm probably too far up in this the baseball world and looking at all that stuff. But I like to turn off and watch that. I think I'm always rooting for Tiger. I think I'm just a fan of his and watching the up and down of his career and how he put golf on the map in such a powerful way. And I don't know, just love to watch him when he's in the mix on Sunday. That's a lot of fun. Him, Justin Thomas. A lot of these guys that I got to see play, and I watched some of that stuff on Netflix. I don't know if you watch it, but we get the inside one-on-one with a lot of these guys. It's been pretty fun to watch them off the course, and I love tuning into the Masters. But no rooting interest until unless we get a little pool going here in the locker room.
That's what I was thinking. And I guess Jan Gomes is buddies with Scott Stallings, who is one of the veterans in the field. You can get a big number on him if you like it. But I didn't. So I think ask him about that. Maybe he's got some inside stuff.
Just take Ian's money. Yeah, take Ian's money on it.
Because Ian's playing chalk. I said, Ian, who do you like? He said, well, Scheffler and Rory. Like, great. Okay, well, that's really stepping outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, Ian's locked in on golf. He's like the golf connoisseur on the team. Him and Tucker Barnhart's got a really strong golf game. So those are the guys you need to ask. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that just is happy to be out there with the buddies and having a cocktail and playing some golf.
That's the way that it should be. Rossi, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Always look forward to talking to you guys this year. Y'all take care.
David Ross, manager of the Chicago Cubs, asked and answered on the stuff everybody wanted.
Yeah, I don't know if it was satisfying,
but he answered
He answered the question.
Said it was on him. This is why he decided it. And you always get back to Joe Madden, who, when he took this job, when Joe Madden was sitting at the Cubby Bear, he said, look, just because a decision doesn't work doesn't mean it was the wrong decision.
Right.
Which basically obviated any bit of criticism for it. It's like, well, all right, I guess that's that then. Joe's like, yeah, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and just because you didn't like it doesn't mean I think it's wrong.
You know what I think is cool about it, though? And it quite frankly caught me off guard. Like, we were watching the game, and I texted you and was like, what? Yeah. Like, what is going on here?
I just thought for sure he's hurt, and he can't. They'd rather have him try to get that down. And they're like, well, then don't have him hit.
Right. And then he, this is Nicky Two-Strike. Anyway, what?
Don't start.
What? Don't start what? You got a 5-2 player sitting there on the bench.
I did it.
Why don't you just?
I got to learn my lesson.
I would think that you would just put him.
Okay.
I just thought it was interesting that I think that it's overall a really good thing that Cubs fans are engaged. I don't know what they think this year is supposed to be, but I like that they have already started out with a little bit of edge and a little bit of expectation. And they go, hey, what were you doing? Why did you make that call?
We're watching now.
We're paying attention.